Welcome to the Open Era Podcast. My name is Devang and Simon. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Simon Bushel. Bush, the masses, the people were wondering where the episode was on Monday, but we were still recovering from the Olympic Games hangover. It's not over yet as we record, but we're hitting close to the very end, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Blame the IOC and the Olympic schedulers for our changed schedule. It's clearly nothing to do with us. We just had to base this podcast around what was going on in France and in Paris in particular. I have had such a good time. I've enjoyed it so much. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life at the end of the conclusion of this games, but I've enjoyed it immensely, it has to be said.
I've been thinking about that as well. Like we went from Euros straight into the Olympics pretty much. So for having stuff on at all times, it's been quite the summer, but it feels like we're going to hit a real low period soon. How much preseason NFL football are you going to watch?
Who am I kidding? Probably quite a lot.
Yeah, I shouldn't ask you that, you sicko, but now the whole world knows. Okay, so let's talk Olympics, and we're gonna give our thoughts on the Olympics as a whole, because Bush is obsessed, and I've watched a lot, and am quite an Olympics fan myself, as we've discussed at length. But let's start with the tennis, Bush, and let's start with the Golden Slam. Novak Djokovic doing the damn thing, beating Carlos Alcaraz in a final after not being able to do it the last few times. I didn't think Novak was going to win this match, Bush, and I was surprised yet again by the performance from the Super Serb, because it was his best match all year. He truly turned it on for quote-unquote the one match that mattered. And I found myself genuinely, like, I liked it. I liked that he won, and was like, you could tell that that was it for him in some ways. Obviously, he's going to keep playing, but it felt like he had checked that last box. I'm curious how you felt about it.
Super Serb or Super Serve, given how well he served in this matchup. I have no attachment to this Golden Slam at all from a personal standpoint. I think it's cool for the sport just to have someone achieve that feat following Steffi Graf and Rafael Nadal. It's cool from that perspective, and I think for Novak Djokovic's fans, I think it's an incredible achievement to join those two other great players, because it's very rare that you see this achievement being reached. I thought he learned some lessons from the last matchups that he's had with Carlos Alcaraz. It's a crazy statement to say. I think if this was a 5-setter, this might actually have been significantly closer, just given how I think Djokovic's game plan was to get these to tiebreakers and then win in tiebreakers. Serve well, take care of your own, and then kind of work from that standpoint, which I think he did exceptionally in this match. But I guess from an emotional standpoint, I think it's cool for the sport, but it does very little for me personally.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised, let's say, that was your take. But I think I thought Carlos looked super nervous, more nervous than he had looked in the other finals. And I wonder if it's because he thought he was supposed to win this match in some ways. Like, I know a lot of the finals he's played in, he looks nervy. Like, that's just kind of how he plays, I feel like. But I think I got some pushback on Discord, and rightfully so, from Josh, who was like, Alcaraz played well, but I don't know if the strategy was to get it to the tiebreak, where, I mean, the nerves and playing Roland Garros, trying to avenge Rafa in some ways, trying to maybe not make this whole thing about Novak, and in some weird way that being important for Spain. Like, I don't know if that mattered at all to him, but it felt like this was different than the other tennis that he's played so far. And it kind of goes to what we've been talking about the Olympics, and like it mattering a bit differently in some ways. And there is, I think, now that we can go back through the years, like several moments where Olympic tennis was able to maybe eclipse what we see at the slams, which is, it is not talked about that way at all.
So what you're saying is Olympic tennis is built different, Devang.
And it's 3 sets, and that's pretty much why. I think the magic of Olympic tennis is, especially on the men's side, obviously, because in the women's side it's no different. But I do think there's just that element of, oh God, like what? It's best of 3. You do not have time to mess around. I kind of like that element of it, and I like the idea of not having that insulation of best of five that we see so many of these guys need to use, because I mean the margins are so thin, and I think if that was Novak's game plan, it was another really smart. I felt like he was coaching his box for most of that final as well, which was hilarious because that's one of those things that everyone was super freaked out as well.
Well, I think the person that would agree with you most about feeling nerves is Carlos Alcaraz himself, quoted post-tournament and post these Olympic Games, and obviously very visibly emotional at the conclusion of the match, in tears. And I think quoted in the last few days when we're recording, effectively saying that it's the most nervous he's felt on court ahead of all of his Grand Slam finals, like this moment playing for his country for a gold medal. Understandably, it really is. And I think, is there something to read into someone living in the village, getting the full Olympic experience the way that Alcaraz did, fully buying into being around his compatriots? And I think in a lot of ways, soaking in that atmosphere that perhaps raises those stakes a little bit, that you are in and around supporting the camp. You know, everyone handles that and deals with it their own way, but maybe that just played a little factor in maybe raising the stakes and feeling that emotional pressure a bit more.
Yeah, and I think not doing the job with Rafa, which, I mean, it wasn't like they were supposed to win, but I think it did matter that they kind of went out the way they did, and you might have felt some extra pressure from that as well. But he'll be back. I mean, barring injury, he will definitely be back. But I think as Novak's last kick at the can, that it was against Alcaraz, and that Alcaraz will have this as something to build off of going forward, because I don't think it'll set him back really. If anything, this will help him. But what a thing for him to have, as like he's still just starting in this game, and he's had one of those like, oh, okay, it's a seminal tennis moment that most people will remember, whether or not they're Novak stans.
Yeah, and I think this was Djokovic's Everest. I think you rightly called it in saying that this was the thing that if he lost every match during the course of the year and won this gold medal match, I think it would have been a successful season for him. It's the only thing that he had left on the agenda or on the tennis bucket list. So is this a surprise or a shock? Absolutely not. 100% it's not a shock. He was always going to bring his A game for this, regardless of where his body was at and his fitness was. He was going to go out on court on his back, and they would have to drag him off kicking and screaming. Fairly unsurprisingly.
I wonder if it was anyone but Tsitsipas that when he felt the knee, if he played someone who didn't have a mental inability to beat Novak Djokovic, but that's not how it works. That's Novak. Let's finish out on the men's side before we talk about Q and Zheng and what happened on the women's side. But Andy Murray, also Bush, walked away from the game, didn't play in singles, played doubles with Dan Evans. They had a good run. They got blitzed by Fritz and Paul, which I think in that matchup, that was not... I feel like Tommy Paul was like, we're going to retire this guy before the match, and they did. And I'm like, okay, what they had from the Laver Cup, Sock and Tiafoe, they brought here, the Americans, in terms of ending legends. But you talk about someone who did the whole Olympic Village thing, like this was the perfect way for Andy Murray to leave tennis, because he loves sports. And I feel like this was a good excuse for him to be able to get great seats for all of the events he always wanted to see.
His Olympic Games is the embodiment of that Grand Theft Auto meme of the, oh, fuck, here we go. Oh, shit, here we go again. You just kind of felt like every time he walked off court following another Houdini act to get through with Dan Evans, it's like, oh, God, I have to do this again? I thought I was done here. And it made for a really good spectacle. It made for a really enjoyable few matches, just simply because there was always the question, could he do it? No, surely not. I think they're both washed to the point that they're not going to win this gold medal or like compete for a medal. But you never know. Maybe. Yeah. And I think the way they lost in the end was a satisfying conclusion, because it was never really close until it kind of was close, and then it really wasn't at the end. Like, I think it was, they competed hard, they played well. I think they lost to the team that they were supposed to lose to. And I think he just gave everyone a great send-off. I think the 3 weeks between Wimbledon and here at the Olympics was a perfect ending for the Scot, and I think everyone should be happy. Not least him, because I think it's a perfect ending to his career.
another one of those guys where like his peers always spoke highly of him, but seeing them interact with Andy up close and seeing random athletes interact with Andy and just getting that vibe of oh, like he will be missed big time, not just as a player obviously, but as a presence in the sport. And I think that's something he reminded us of a lot during this. But yeah, all of not the false retirements, but like the will he or won't he, and the fact that Roberto Batista, who was not involved in this final, didn't make it feel real. But the adding "I used to play tennis" in his bio was very good, and I am curious to see what he does next, whether or not he sticks around the game. I was thinking about this with Milos Raonic, who pulled out of Montreal due to a shoulder injury, and I was talking to someone on site, Mike McIntyre, actually at Match Point, and we were discussing whether Milos would stay in tennis afterwards, and it didn't seem so. Like Mike didn't think so, but I wonder about Andy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think gun to my head, he does. Like, I think he thinks the game so well, and I think he maybe perhaps has gone through the reflection period away from the game that a lot of players sort of go through when they first retire from the sport, where I think he's already done that because of the hip surgery, multiple times, and to come back. And I think it perhaps has put him in the headspace where he does love the sport and loves the things that come with it. So I think he would be a superb coach. I think he'd be a superb head of the LTA. I think he'd be a superb, any level of tennis that he wants to be involved with. He has the brain, he has the smarts. Obviously, he has the knowledge taken from a 20-odd year career. I would be, I think, going out on him, I would be surprised if he doesn't stay involved in the sport.
Yeah, I think I agree. And I feel like with what's coming in tennis, it would be helpful if someone like him was around or involved on the player side, potentially if the PTA becomes something bigger, or when the ATP and WTA go to their players to ratify whatever it is that's coming, which sounds relatively soon, or definitely something that will come up in earnest in 2025. But yeah, let's see. Anything else from the men's side, Bush, that captured your attention?
Just the sort of month and a half that it's been for Lorenzo Musetti. I think just to highlight that, of someone who I think has been very open about the struggles that it's been on tour, both mentally and physically, and someone who I am obviously a tremendous believer in from a talent standpoint, and just trying to put a few weeks together to solidify that he does belong at the top end of the sport. And I think he really does. And I think there's a demonstration here, both at Wimbledon and the Olympics, that he's more than capable of being not just a top 10 player, but someone who is competing for Grand Slams. You do kind of feel like there is just that one little roadblock in the way, like that one final thing that he needs to have the belief and the game to find it, to get over the line. But in general, what a week for him, or what a month for him.
That tennis abstract page for Lorenzo Musetti's looking pretty nice. There's a big common name in one Novak Djokovic that stopped him in some big moments. But yeah, if that's the final piece, I mean, he's not the only guy. We're not the first player to encounter that, but he is one of the few that I think has the abilities and the capability to figure it out. And I thought the bronze medal match with Felix, I think Felix already having the bronze with Gabby Dabrowski in mixed doubles maybe altered his thinking slightly. Not to say he wasn't trying to win it, but I thought for what he had put in the last 2 months, like you said, Bush, deserved reward for Lorenzo Musetti to get that bronze medal.
Keep an eye out for him. I think the rest of the season, I don't know how he's going to do on hard courts, especially these slower hard courts on the hard court swing. You never know though. We'll see. Like I'm on record, maybe the biggest fan in the world of his. So fingers crossed it continues, this form keeps going into the rest of the season.
Shout out to Ebden and Piers from Australia for winning that men's doubles title. I do like it when a doubles team wins, when there's a bunch of singles guys entered, or singles women on the women's side either. Like I do like that, the purist in me.
I'm absolutely 100% a fan of championship tiebreakers as well. I think, especially in this format, winning a set, leveling it up, and then having to go to a 10-point tiebreaker in the third set is just tremendous fun. It really is. It feels like a shootout.
it made, again, was like the idea of the Olympics in play. It made these feel very, very tense and vomit inducing as a spectator watching some of these. I'm like, oh God, this is
Speaks
tight.
to the interesting part about tennis as well, doesn't it? So we've seen, how many sports have we seen over the last 10, 12 days? 60, who knows, 60 different disciplines.
A lot.
And then you look at tennis, it is an elongated period in the same way at football, 90 minutes, you have a long time, just the nature of time to level up and to sort of have the ability to compete. And then you look at gymnastics and you're like, one fall, you're hosed. You can't afford anything. This perfection.
Don't get me started on some of the wild abilities from those folks. Incredible. We'll talk about it in the second half. Okay, women's side. A smart tennis fan, a listener of this show, definitely, but not us, apparently, because we are not smart tennis fans. But if I presented to you a scenario which Qi Zheng wins the gold medal in Paris, I think there's a passable, like, oh, yeah, okay, it happened like this, sure. So if I presented it like this, in the sense that she defeated a retiring Angelique Kerber in a near all-timer of a match in the quarterfinals, follows that up with a win over Iga Swiatek, in which she pulls the Iga move and holds her up in an important moment on her opponent's serve, and then goes toe-to-toe with Donna Vekic and pulls no apologies along the way, cementing herself as a gold medalist. You could believe that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No denying that. She's been good on clay this season as well. Like, has got a pretty good record overall, as I believe won a title this year already in Palermo. So, like, a good player on the surface who's still in the ascent as well. And there is something to be said about the Chinese crowd as well at the Olympics, who are bashing their athletes.
Donna Vekic, I've never seen Donna Vekic that bad before, and I don't know. I don't know if Zhang necessarily hated it, if you know what I mean, by some of her reactions. But well played, especially the Emma Navarro stuff, which come at the Queen, you best not miss, and they all missed.
If you're beating Iga Swiatek on clay at Roland Garros, you deserve to win any title that you're in the mix for. That's how good the poll has been.
100%.
So the right player won this tournament, I think, on merit. I think Donna Vekic had a great tournament as well. I think it was a good story to watch. But boy, Zheng's we're in heady territory now of how good can this player be. After a little bit of a slow burn, it has to be said, considering some of the scalps that she has had and the expectation placed upon a player like this. It's been, I don't know, flattering to deceive is quite the phraseology here. I think we just all expected a little more from the talent level that was there. I mean, and boy, did she deliver in this tournament. Full marks and fully worthy of it.
Talking about a big moment, I think this is China's first gold medal in singles in tennis. And I mean, the investment is the investment, and the academies and the players they're producing are one thing. But I think the singles achievement is a big moment, and I think you could see it as well from the reaction, not just of the China fans at the stadium, but in her box especially. There seemed to be quite a few dignitaries who were very invested in the rallies at every shot, and a little more so than I maybe saw from the Czechia crew during the mixed doubles final or something else. So I think as well, in terms of carving that place within the tennis high society, and especially at Roland Garros, like, I think that was a big moment as well, that it wasn't a European champion.
Totally right. And Australian Open finalist, lest we forget, like, getting to our first slam final. There's the order of events that you want to see from a young player continuing to ascend, finally getting a big title like this in the format that it is. I mean, she's really good. Like, what else can we really say about this? Like, this is a player that's still ascending as well. And maybe it's a more open question to the open era universe of why on earth does a rivalry like Zheng and Swiatek, which is kind of a rivalry, but not a rivalry, but kind of feels like a rivalry still, there's no smoke without fire again on this one. I guess we're just a few days removed from saying there is plenty of smoke around Iga Swiatek, given her dressing down on court from Danielle Collins.
Still one of the highlights of the games for me.
You do get the sense that Zheng and Swiatek don't really like each other a whole lot.
No, I don't know if anyone likes anyone, to be honest, after this, after the events that I've seen. And to be fair, I've seen a lot of camaraderie in Toronto in the early days so far. But I think there is some smoke there. And I kind of also enjoyed and welcomed that Iga was able to get bronze, because I felt like if this was going to be a fair indicator of who are the best clay court players, and in this tournament especially, I didn't think Iga was like bad. I thought her performance was definitely worthy of a top 3 showing. So it felt like justice on the women's side overall.
Justice for Zheng.
The double and let's talk about. I'm just gliding over your wonderful job there, and talk about Jasmine Paolini, who I think, like Donna Vekic, was a sentimental favorite for a lot of people after she came so close the last couple majors. Sarah Irani pairing up with Paolini to win doubles gold. Bit of a long shot. Maybe it shouldn't have been, as they were the 3rd seed, but I had Andreeva and Diana Schneider's incredible bandana as the winners in this. But that was another good super breaker. That was excellent.
Thank God that Jasmine Paolini won this title.
Seriously. No one will be sad really with a silver. I guess you would be in some situations, but in this case, yeah. I also wonder, and tennis is great for this, where you probably are happier with a bronze than a silver in some situations, right? 90% of the time, because you've won that 3rd place match. I know this is a common discussion, but where do you fall on this?
Sure. Yeah. Let's go with the psychology from the from whatever. I don't know how you would define the discipline of psychology, whether or not it's real or not, but that's maybe. Jesus, that's opening a can of worms that I probably shouldn't have done on this podcast, recording at this time of day. But yes, the data does indicate that the bronze medalists are usually happier than the silver medalists overall, specifically for that reason.
We'll close on the bronze that Canada won, and mainly Gabby Dabrowski, who is in Toronto. She made the trip back. Felix made the trip back as well, and he lost promptly in Montreal, which I
unsurprising.
Really, I mean, yeah, like the fact that he showed up, like I understand why. These cats have a ton of sponsorship stuff to do, and so he had to go. But I also commend him in general for doing all of this off of that. But I thought Felix picked up Gabby at points. I thought Gabby picked up Felix at points, especially towards the end when they got that bronze. It was a really great partnership to see. And you could also see Felix kind of get out of his head a bit after he had a really, really bad year. And I think this week, hopefully long-term, is sort of an elixir for him. But playing with someone like Gabby, I think helped him a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Play with him more, I think is the advice that I give here. Exceptional doubles player, Gabby Dabrowski. Multiple time slam champion. Just you can see it, right? Watching her play and just her exploits during the course of this week and a half at the Olympics, that she was in some ways picking up Felix, in some ways carrying that team. But it also should be said, like I think we bang the drum so much for Felix Auger-Aliassime. Jesus Christ, Simon. For Felix Auger-Aliassime. It's rough. It's warm here in Vancouver. And you can, in doubles, you can see why. Like, the serve is massive. His movement is excellent. And his ability to get to the front of the court and have an all-court game. And he's a good volleyer as well. He should be good in this discipline. And we still have high hopes for him in singles. Like, this is a really, really good player, and I hope he can pull it together.
The serve definitely showed up for large portions of this tournament in both singles and doubles, and that is something that hopefully can remain a thing, because that was a big game changer for him. Anything else, Simon, on the tennis side before we go to parting shots?
I mean, did you enjoy the fan fiction story, the mixed doubles winner?
Siniakova and Mahak. I did. I I love Barb Krejcikova also being the Zendaya challengers type figure in the box, as Josh mentioned on the Discord.
That's funny.
Very interesting. Who knows? Who knows? I like the dynamic. There were several. Mahak being the short guy that somehow is being lionized as one of the vanguards of the short revolution in men's tennis, which I need some sources to cite on that because I don't know if he was the very first, but apparently based on some of the readings I've done, he's being given credit. So what do I know?
Short king, if you will. My partner watched this final and also another. Who was playing? Someone else did the really short shorts thing. It might have been during the Euros. Someone had fully pulled up the shorts and she asked why.
Declan Rice did. I think Declan Rice did.
Declan Rice did, yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard, yes. Yeah.
I think her exact phrasing was, why on earth is that player wearing a diaper on court? Which...
Honestly, we've seen enough people shit themselves metaphorically that it's not far. It's not far away.
Short shorts, not a fan.
Czechia, bags of medals in doubles once again. Amazing. Although they did not win the bronze.
Something's going on. Something's going well over in Czechia. They know what they're doing when it comes to tennis.
Shouts to Kristina Buxa and Sarah Ceribes-Tormo for grabbing the bronze in the women's doubles. Okay, when we come back, we'll tackle some other news that we haven't talked about yet, including Rafa Nadal withdrawing from the US Open, plus some National Bank Open stuff as the tours hit Canada. All of that coming up next on Open Era. Welcome back to the Open Air Podcast. It's time for parting shots. Simon, we've got plenty of news, including tennis.
What an intro. Have we?
It's true.
What a 6 days it's been since we last spoke to you.
Sources indicate. I've had a few long days at the National Bank Open as we record this late in the evening, Eastern time.
There's not much tennis news, it has to be said. Perhaps the biggest thing that's happened during the course of the week is Rafa Nadal has pulled out of the US Open entirely expectedly. Again, I think you would have to be incredibly naive if you were going to believe that he was going to show up and play there. Hola a todos, once again. It has appeared across the timelines. Everyone is...
Did he say that, though? Did he say that this time?
I don't think he did. I think he wrote in English this time. No, he must have written Spanish.
That's why I was shook. That's why I was shook, because if there's no hola a todos, then you have to know something for real is going on. No, we ran this through our Rafa Nadal expert whisperer, Priyanka, and I think the vibe is that he'll retire soon, but it wouldn't be at something like the Laver Cup because it's been done before, obviously, and we don't need another Ellie Goulding type serenade. But it does make the question, how do you think Rafa would go out? Is it going to be at a Kamala Harris, Tim Waltz rally? Will it be? Will it be?
Now that would be a turn out for the books. That has to be said. That would be a surprise. And now introducing the Secretary of Sport, Rafael Nadal. How would Tim Waltz do that in terms of a folksy Minnesotan?
They're taking
style?
Ideas. Apparently, they're taking ideas.
By gum, here he is. Rafael Nadal.
It'd be him presenting Jordan Love, who would then present Rafa Nadal. Jordan Love, Packers quarterback. I don't know why he'd be presenting a Wisconsin guy, but anyways, how do you think Nadal will hang him up, Bush? I'm curious because I think Josh threw out there Barcelona on the Discord. There's some talk about potentially the French Open again next year, but what do you think?
He's not getting the French Open next year, surely.
No, I don't think he wants. Yeah. The Laver Cup doesn't make sense, but I do feel like early next year, potentially doing it low key, not at a tournament, could be something. Doing it announcing it at his academy also feels right. So it could just not be at a tournament.
Yeah, another year on tour. I cannot not a chance that seems. He's going to be 39 by the time he's trying to come back on tour for the 2025 season. Imagine he comes back and wins the French Open next year.
No, okay, well, it would be one of the greatest things ever. And now I'm fully believing it. But the Laver Cup will be fascinating because you have such a bizarre cast of characters on the Europe side. It's Zverev, Medvedev, Ruud, and Tsitsipas with Rafa Nadal and Alcaraz. What are the vibes on that team? Also, what are we doing here? Is my other question.
Yeah. What's the point of this tournament after Roger Federer has gone? Feels entirely
just weird husks of the world team getting together and potentially winning, but does it feel like it matters at all? I don't know. So anyways, let's see what happens in Berlin. I'm surprised that he's going, but he's getting a huge check probably, so that is a factor as well.
You know, I have keen-eared listeners amongst you will have noticed that I didn't answer the question that you asked me, mostly because I don't know. I have no idea how he's going to hang it up.
And perhaps it doesn't matter. Like, we shouldn't know. It's not up to us. Let's see what he does. The US Open will be not the same without him. Anytime Rafa made a run at the US Open, it felt weirdly mythical. Bush, is that fair? He wasn't supposed to do it.
It almost felt like he was doing it out of spite of the tournament and of the city.
Exactly. And I love that. I love that part about him. So he will be missed for sure. And we shall see when he returns in Berlin what he's like. Iga Swiatek, Simon. Good season so far.
Yeah, somewhat of an understatement despite her loss in the semi-final at the Olympic Games. She qualifies for the WTA Tour Final. She becomes the first player to do so. It's a thin week when it comes to news when this makes the list. Of course she was going to qualify for the WTA Finals. Of course that was going to happen. The interesting part about this was who else was in the race. And I think that chase for the 8th position will be the interesting part because currently Danielle Collins is in it. And wouldn't that be a good send-off? And I think that's really one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up is that ultimately I hope she continues the season, has a good hard court swing, because it would be wonderful to see her sign off her career at the WTA Finals. And I think that would be just so nice to see.
I think Danielle is up to 6 now as well. So, and Kiwen Zhang is now 8. So Jasmine Paolini is 4th. This is, it's awesome. It's awesome. We had some conversations about like where the tour on the women's side kind of shakes out now with Rybakina dealing with the injuries and Coco Gauff having some on and off stuff. But I'm very curious to see Aryna Sabalenka this week in Toronto, Bush, because this will be our first look at her post-injury and someone that obviously has a good time on a hard court.
It's going to be interesting to see how Sabalenka looks coming back. It really will be, just given the injury and... Is it fair to say an up and down season when you win a Grand Slam? Probably not, but just on the nature of how much time she's missed. She's looked good when she's played, but she's not played a whole lot over the last few months. So I think that will be the fascinating part.
Yeah, and obviously like stuff off the tennis court with her season, like not a super great year, right? So like there's a lot of stuff going on. She made it to the semis in Washington, lost to a very informed Maria Buskova. So we shall see where Sabalenka is at. And our segue into the Olympics is Andrei Rublev, unfortunately, who joined in on the conversation regarding Ivan Khalif, the Algerian boxer who will box for gold. Rublev joining a sea of idiocy regarding the boxer and misidentifying her and several other things. But to his credit, Andrei Rublev did retract his post, Bush, which in this absolute clusterfuck of a world, it's a low bar, but I think he cleared it for me by walking it back.
Yeah, in the notes I wrote my favorite thick of it quote that he took a shit with his trousers on, which gets me every time. It always makes me laugh. But you are allowed to fuck up. You're allowed to fuck up if you listen to the people that are telling you that for the reason that you have fucked up, and you think twice about things, you respond to it. we want people to be perfect. It's, I think, the people that plant their head firmly in the sand and only dig it deeper, or pick the shovel out and only dig the grape.
And proudly keep digging, yeah.
Exactly. So I think it is a reasonable position to be mad at Andrei Rublev. I think it is equally an okay position to be accepting that someone is learning and continuing to move, and you hope continues to learn in this space. The less said for some of the other fucks in this area, Jesus Christ, it's been a bad week.
It's not helped that one of the shit-brain federations involved in this, the IBO, might be the worst sport federation in the history of sport, which is saying something considering all of the organizations that have tarnished themselves. But holy cow, like what the hell? I think it's the IBA, sorry. But in any case, the fact that we have 9,000 boxing federations and this is the shittiest one that the IOC deals with them is quite IOC. Let's talk about Olympics, Bush. I mean,
hang on 1 second on that point. Let me ask an open question here again, just for the sake of it. If I was to say rank in order of shittiness, the IBA, the IOC, the NCAA, the NFL, and FIFA, you have to fucking think about it because all of them are awful, which I think might make you forced to stop and think about it.
I think the IBA is the winner, though. Like, I don't think this organization as an entity is functional based on who their president is. Yeah, credible, functional, based on who their president is and based on the decisions they make. Oh God, it's just,
these are horrendous organizations. Like, just truly horrendous on so many levels. I'm so handing in my credential card to ever go to any of these organizations again. Let it be clear, I'm the one saying this, not Dev. Don't take away his card. But Jesus Christ, it's awful.
Oh man, yeah, not great. So I there's been several great moments though. In spite of themselves, I mean, the Olympics, the athletes, the fans, the people who have helped put these games on, whether it be volunteers, organizers. Like, I think there's been a lot of great moments. I will point out a few, Bush, that stood out to me. And I think of the 100-meter race. I had to watch it over again. I thought that was weirdly epic in a French way, that they made them wait that long, and then also not knowing who won until Noah Lyles was declared and you ripped off his bib. I thought that was really poetic, and also Simone Biles, just all of it. But also when Rebecca Andrade won the floor exercise gold, and Simone was part of that dedication to her. That will probably linger in my mind for a long time. The Brazilian surfer Medina as well, that photo, and also the surfing event in general. We had whales and like live shots, which was amazing. A lot of cool stuff, man. But what for you stood out?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the same things that you sort of highlighted. I enjoyed watching Keely Hodgkinson win gold from the British perspective. I thought both Canadians in the hammer throw was, for a nation like Canada to produce 2 gold medals in the way that they did, a remarkable achievement, and to be head and shoulders above the field as well, which is wonderful to see. I enjoyed Duplantis breaking the world record in high jump.
Mondo.
I thought it was great. It was good theater. I was trying to make a Timothy Chalamet joke there, or adjacent.
For a small business owner from Chicago running a humble restaurant, he's doing great stuff. Mondo Duplantis. That whole event, I love. So pole vault, scariest thing to me that you could do. I think it's an Olympic event, as someone who is kind of height averse, even though I don't mind roller coasters. I think like just being not restrained that high up scares the shit out of me. But like the camaraderie amongst the pole vaulters was like actually heartwarming. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, they seem to genuinely support each other and like each other a lot. I think that's one of those things.
Maybe it's because the sport is insane, and there's like there's really just a small set of people who are in it to win it and dedicated this way.
And a lesson to everyone: before you go out, make sure you tuck. Of course, like don't.
Oh, dongs, hammer and dongs. That's why we're calling it this. In case you're wondering, check out the film or YouTube.
If you know, you know.
I wanted to shout
that
out
sucks, by the
Teddy.
way. Like,
yeah,
that stuff happens live.
Well, does
on,
it though?
like,
Does it suck? Because he's like an attractive guy who is now confirmed as having a reasonable dong. I think this is a fine self-advertisement.
Do we want to be like this as a society? Should the thirst be this strong upon watching the Olympic Games?
When you take over the IBA, maybe we can get things going in a better direction. But until then, I wanted to shout out Teddy Reiner, the French judoka, and Mijan Lopez, the Cuban wrestler. Dominant athletes who went out in possibly the coolest way possible. Whether it be leaving your shoes on the mat, that is the ultimate retirement to me. Like in tennis, to me, that is the leave your shoes on the court after you win something. How cool would that be if Rafa can engineer a tournament to do that at? That's the way to go, because I think that's sport to me.
Is it shoes or is it bandana for Nadal?
Yeah, that's fair. But because no one's done that, correct? No one in tennis has done that.
On the floor? Well, Del Potro did it on the net, so
That's true. Delpo. Oh, Delpo. That was...
He's ruined it.
Yes. And also, hey, Delpo, though, fills the Olympic lore theory of seminal moments happening in the Olympics that feel like they are in a weird times wormhole of like they exist outside of the rest of tennis.
I have lots and lots of things to say about the Olympics, and I keep threatening this. Sport by sport.
I know, but in the interest
I think I could do all of it. Not now, but I think I could do all of it.
What? Yeah, I mean,
You're so hesitant about this. Which
I don't want to open Pandora's box, so I'm very.
You don't want to do a 3.5 hour show going sport by sport
No.
as a test to see how much you watched over the last 13 days.
I'll say this about kayak cross. One of the most physical, violent sports I've seen that I did not expect at all. But that is damn. Getting around those cones, I guess, those hanging cones in which you have to turn around the same one. My God.
Why did they drop out of the sky? I
know. It's also, yeah, I didn't see that. I also, the Ethiopian runner who was knocked out in the steeplechase, that was frightening. There was bits of frightening stuff as well. I think that the soccer has been a bit of a shit show, to be honest, like just from like a people in seats thing and making sure like all the games felt treated the same. I haven't got that vibe from watching them, most of them, streaming. I wonder if anyone can write it and tell us what it was like there at some of the grounds, like Saint Etienne's ground when Canada was playing. Like, I don't know. I know why they didn't have to have these things in Paris because they have too much stuff going on and they had to spread them out. But I felt like the soccer felt shoehorned in to these games. And I know it often feels like that, but it really did here.
Is it a controversial statement? Well, I'm going to make the controversial statement. You can feel free to disagree with me, but I don't think football, golf, and basketball are Olympic sports. Like the professionalization of those, like the professionalization of those sports, like unless they're going to be amateur or like involve some rules in it.
So 3-on-3 has the right idea then in your mind.
Yeah, that's kind of been shit to watch as well, though. It has to be said.
I admit, a lot of people liked it. Basically because they hate defense, I guess. Or I don't know. I don't know what
I don't quite understand. Like, obviously, I'm a basketball fan. I'm an NBA fan, but I've just not particularly enjoyed watching a nation who is so dominant steamroll through everyone because of how the sport is set up.
In that way, 3-on-3 was fascinating because neither a U.S. team won gold. So that was, I mean, a bit of a... Yeah, it's a fair shout. Like, I also found it interesting that like Novak winning on Sunday, I felt overshadowed Scotty Scheffler mounting an insane comeback and winning a gold medal. Like I didn't feel like that was talked about enough at all based on how nuts that was.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best seasons of a professional athlete ever. It has to be said, just given how his
He also
his
got
season has gone.
arrested. He also got arrested before one of the majors for hitting a cop with his car.
Yes, doing praxis in before the final round of a major.
He checked off the Americana box all in one. It was only right he was presented a gold medal afterwards for his efforts.
All he had to do was to shoot his gun into the sky as that 18th hole pot fell down.
I will say I found myself not going easier. I'm not like hating on any of these athletes really, except for the ones that deserve it. But like I'm going easier on the individual athletes I find, whereas I reserve my nationalistic scorn for the team events because I feel less bad about it. But I do see where you're coming from, where the professionalization and also like the weird half measures of the men's side being under 23, except for 3 overage players. Like, what are we doing? Like, I think the women's game as a chance to actually field all of the best women's players. Yes, like that's why it has this place as the best of the best, but the Olympics should be. But once you start introducing these caveats, like I think it's different. I disagree. Whereas like I think basketball should be in. I'm less sure about men's soccer in the Olympics.
Yeah, this is not an Olympics podcast, but it could be.
You got time, sir. If you want to take the soapbox.
No, it's totally fine. It's fine. I'll do it by myself. Damn it! Coming to a feed near you, me reading out 900 pages worth of notes.
Are you just gonna read the results of the events? Is this your grand content plan? Saber, individual, winner.
I'm going into business for myself. I had the notes. Well, I was watching this, and I could not believe the way that Ukrainian came in second. It's gonna be great.
No, but I do. I back when Twitter was good, which it might have been actually for like 3 days in hindsight. It might have been 3 days when Twitter was good in its long history. But I did enjoy that as like if you were watching something and you put it out there like, wait, yes, I remember this. Femke Bowl. Femke Bowl is the moment of the games for me because I think the Olympics for me are weird made up track events / swimming events. I love those two, but combined events that are like new and they feel like kind of flimsy on the premise, but also the introductions and to get into this, Femke Bowl and Sydney McLaughlin are the like icons of 400 meter hurdling, and I think Sydney McLaughlin is like the bigger star, but they're both up there as like the top 2 in their sport. So it was thought they would not race in the 4x400 because they were resting. And Sydney McLaughlin didn't race for the USA in the final. But when they were introducing the Dutch team, Femke Bol was there, and it stunned everyone, and it felt like a wrestler being introduced into the Royal Rumble who you weren't expecting.
Entry number 30.
In the race, the Dutch are getting smoked until the anchor leg when Femke Bol takes over and literally runs down the Americans. It was the greatest thing I think I have seen at these games, and she sounds a bit like Mickey Mouse, which is why you might have remembered her name from before, because I think there's a clip going around of Femke Bol doing an interview. But I loved her coming back, but the reaction of her teammates, Bush, that was awesome. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's right up there in terms of moments of she came from so far back. It was ridiculous. Maybe a point to more broadly make. Mixed events are good. Like they're really, really interesting. It offers a new dynamic to everything. There was a few mixed events in the pool as well for, I believe, the second time after it first appearing in 2021 at the Tokyo Olympics. So it's good to see a continuation of that. I'm down for it. I think it makes for a really good spectacle. So more of this, please.
I don't know when this is coming out, but that 400 meter hurdle final, that will probably be one of the showstopper last few moments of the games. Make sure you watch that. Okay, before 2 challenges remaining, Bush, I'll let you get out one more Olympic take if you've got one.
I mean, it has to be cycling, does it not? Team GB?
Oh, man. Oh, can we talk about Remco at Evenepoel as well? who did the double. And then when he won, on his way to winning, his bike explodes and they just throw him a random bike and he's like trying to work out the gears. And then afterwards, just like, that was close, laughing with the cameraman. I thought that was a hilarious moment from someone who is hopefully clean, but also an incredible cyclist. Holy cow. I
love just that. The image of that, it's equivalent to someone being thrown like someone breaks their stick in hockey and they get chucked one from the bench, or like I kind of like this idea in tennis as well. Like you drop your racket and you're not allowed to pick it up mid rally, so your coach has to lob it to you from the crowd.
So good. Yes, it was so great. And Team GB still doing it totally on the level.
Yeah, no issues here. Very very clean. All above ground, above surface. Everything's fine. Best team in the world, best athletes in the world, and they continue to dominate on the track. I think the sprint events in the cycling, I don't like how a lot of this stuff is backloaded, and I know some of the venues and the way that it gets moved around in the Olympics, but I think it's a fun sport that I think actually would benefit being closer to the start of the games than at the end of it, because I think a lot of people's attention is rightfully so quite fatigued at this point of having 2 solid weeks of events. And I actually feel the same way about some of the newer sports, or some of the newer sports to the games. The same way that skateboarding is. Like, yeah. I just want some of this a little earlier.
Breaking for last, it feels like, right?
Which is cool. Like, I respect that, because it's a brand new sport and all that to the games. So I think that's kind of interesting, but yeah, I think most people have tuned out at this point, other than absolute sickos, i.e. us and this podcast.
My hand is up. It's an audio medium, but my hand is up.
I have to admit, I did 4 hours today, and that was I couldn't do much more. That was about my limit, so it's easily my shortest day.
Let me tell you, handball is barely an Olympic sport. It's just hanging on to me. What the hell is going on in Europe that they convince people to get this in the Olympic Games?
How is squash not an Olympic sport, given that everything else...
coming back. It's coming back in LA, sir. So
I can go down to LA. Yeah. I'll take the 3-hour flight and figure out the transportation.
Hang on to your goggles, sir. Your protective goggles.
Another potential medal for GB. We should only put sports in that either Canada or GB can win.
2 challenges remaining, sir. What do you got this week?
I wanted to shout out the Game UI database. This is just gone through its 2.0 update, and it is I'm trying to find this guy's name, actually, just give him a shout out. I might have to check this later. Anyway, it's a guy's personal project who, Ed Coates is his name. And it basically is all of the user interface for any video game out there. I think there's like 2,000 games in this database. It's just had its 2.0 release. It's added a bunch of new features to it. For someone, I don't work in the games industry, but games adjacent in the creative medium, if you're ever interested in looking at how like a huge cross section of games, or the art direction, how like it animates, any of that kind of thing, it is a wonderful resource. And for a passion project and someone who's so dedicated to it, it's a really, really wonderful resource.
I'm gonna check this out. Awesome. Mine will be NBO Toronto related. I'm there again this week covering it for our radio station, and it's also the birthday of my dad, who, as some listeners will know, passed away a few months ago. But I was able to catch some tennis with my sister on my dad's birthday down at the tennis, and I'm also hosting a show with Revoir, who is a legend at the station and someone who's been on the airs for many years, and he's someone my dad used to listen to as well, on the fan. So I feel like it was a bit of a full circle moment this week, being able to host shows with Roger, someone who's treated me so well and so awesomely, and someone who's been through this rodeo so many times. It's been a cool moment to experience after a trying few months. So yeah, shouts to tennis. I do feel like this is a bit of a crossroads for me in some ways, but the sport in a lot of ways feels like a bit of a lighthouse in terms of keeping me from running into the rocks. So shouts to tennis, Simon.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you were able to have that moment, like to have a moment of like reflection. So I'm like really happy for you in that regard. I think the thing that I'm constantly reminded of though is that, oh yeah, you're actually a professional broadcaster and you continue to do this show with me. So I'm always appreciative of that. At one point in my life, I was maybe 20 years ago. So
no, I look forward to this more than you'll know, sir. So yeah, no. If
wait,
you're
is that right? That would imply that I was a broadcaster at 15, which, you know, is kind of true.
There's a sitcom there, by the way. There's a sitcom there. Let's get this in production. All right. We'll leave it there. If you are so inclined to talk more tennis with us, join us at patreon.com/open era. Join us there, get the show ad free, get it early, and join us on the Discord where we're chatting tennis all the time with some lovely, lovely people. And I believe that is it for producer Dylan on the ones and twos, and for Simon. Thank you so much for talking. Thank you so much for listening to us. And we'll talk to you soon. Leave it in. Leave it in. Goodbye.
Professional broadcaster, ladies and gentlemen.